Welcome everyone to today's edition of Lunch Break, presented by the amazing team of women who are part of the community Las Comadres. So in these panel discussions that we're having during weekdays at noon, we are taking experts from our group to tackle everything from changes in small business to stress management to parenting. And today's group and today's panel is on choosing hope and positivity. And so I want to welcome these amazing women today from our group. And so we have Ilona Pamplona, who is a self-compassion and clarity coach. We have Katie Maldonado, an intuitive success coach, and Jamie Nolan, who is a life coach and one of our co-founders for Las Comadres. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
So I want to share with everyone, this group of women, they are absolutely amazing, and they're quite extraordinary women in this field of hope and positivity. Just the way they show up, the way they hold their clients, the community. And I really want to acknowledge them. And this is an amazing team to have on this panel today. So the first thing I want to ask you all, in true Las Comadres form, is we're just going to go deep right away. So what are you grateful for today?
So I am grateful for my pets and the air and the energy that like our pet companions and our families bring. In these moments, they have been quite the comforters.
And Jamie?
I am thankful for the people that are still working, because we had some serious plumbing issues in the last 3 days with 5 people in my house. It was not very pretty, including the septic tank and all the other things. So I'm very thankful for our amazing plumber and the septic people and all the people that are out there still going to work and making it work. So that is my gratefulness today.
Ilona?
I am grateful for the gift of technology that allows us to stay connected in these times.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Align with all of that. So we are in interesting times, and this will be, played back later for a lot of people, but being in the time of quarantine, it takes significant desire to connect to hope and positivity at this point, and active choosing. And I really want to acknowledge that, like, in this time, as a society, we're in this contraction expansion moment. So all the emotions are coming up, all the shadow work is coming up with people in their home, with their family and work. And what do you think is the first little point or jewel of information that it's actually time to choose? Not just wait for hope and positivity, but like, what's that sweet spot when you know it's time to actively choose?
I think for, like, not just right now, but always knowing that it is a choice, right? That, like, it's not just about, like, oh, people whose life is good and, like, easy and these things are all happening, that, like, hope and positivity is there, but that it's always an active choice, right? That it is like, listen, you can choose whatever you want, and the situation right now is only just, like, shining this giant spotlight on it. It's just, like, illuminating what you are going to choose.
Yeah, that reminds me a lot about, I'm sure a lot of people have gone through leadership or through Landmark, and there's this idea of, the experiences are neutral, and how are we electing to navigate that experience? So kind of like acknowledging like Jamie said, like, yeah, this is a difficult moment, and how are you going to then from there navigate what happens moving forward is what comes up for me.
I think it took some time, and I think that's okay. Like, I think in the moments that we're going through now, it's like there are these moments where it's like, oh no, and it gets emotional and all these things happen. And I think in the moment that, like, I love it when, and I think it's Marie Forleo, but it's the things like when you get tired of your own stuff. It was like I was tired of being sad. It's like I got tired of like, I need to do something else. And at that moment, I chose self-compassion. And at that moment, like through that journey of self-compassion, after I got tired of being sad and being sad of being sad, I'm like, okay, like I'm ready to do something different and get a different outcome.
Absolutely. And I think you're pointing to there's this moment where it gets tight and uncomfortable, and you get to the place of there's got to be a better way. Mm-hmm. And it comes to the place of like, are you willing to have it be different? Right.
I actually love words, and the word hope, I looked up the etymology, and it comes from Old English, Hoppian, to trust. And so I think also what this is alluding to is once you acknowledge that this is a rough situation and you lend yourself the self-compassion, when are you going to trust in yourself, in the experience where you're being placed, that it's going to work out, or it's going to work out the way you need to learn or you need for this to unfold?
Yeah. And so the interesting thing is, what tools or ideas do you have for someone to actually start to trust for the first time, to like go to this place that they've never gone before, or they have proof that it doesn't work, right? There's a collection of proof, and it's like the sunglasses that we want to put on. We're looking for evidence to collect about it. But getting to making that leap of faith, like how do you go from like, I'm in the junk, right? Or I'm in the soup, to like, I can choose this because I trust the process. I trust that it will shift. I, believe. So what tools or ideas do you have for at least first connecting to trust?
I think a lot of times you just have to find like small proof, right? So like whether it's in, by finding gratitude. So like, just like, it's all the tiny little things that add up, right? So like, if you're like, oh, when we are not in that space, we are proving the opposite, right? Like, oh, everything's going wrong, right? And you're just like racking up all the things. But in it, you can also like the duality of it, right? You can always find the good in the bad. Like it's always there. Sometimes you have to look a little harder, but like it's always there. And so it's like, that's where your choice comes. That's where the trusting comes. It's like, okay, like, what has this taught me? What am I looking for? What am I seeing that's making it work? What is this making me do? Right? Like, is this making me slow down? Like yesterday I banged my head on I turned my head too fast and hit the side of the wall with my glasses. And I was like, you need to slow down. Like, you are obviously moving so fast that your face is not keeping up with you, right? And that's like, yeah, it hurt and I was pissed, but I was also like, okay, slow down, take a few deep breaths, like find the parts of it that find the pieces that can give you some hope, find the pieces that you can trust, find the pieces that are going to take you like just a little higher in the spiral out of where you're going. You don't have to get all the way to the top. You just have to go a little better than you were, right?
Awesome. So what's a deeper why? Like, why choose hope and possibility besides like the surface level, like I'm gonna kind of be in a better mood? What's the deeper why?
I feel like it's overall well-being. Going to what we were talking about of like, what's that moment, like why, or how do I somehow get myself in a place to choose trust? And it was, for me, when I was experiencing everything, I'm like, I've gotta get my body to just be still. It's in that moment that Jamie was saying, it's like, slow down. And
just from a physiological standpoint, it was like, okay, if I'm freaking out, my mind, like the prefrontal cortex, it's losing its mind. And I cannot hear my intuition. I cannot hear those whispers if I am like all up everything in the front. And so I chose, because of well-being, because I can either choose a life of stress and sorrow and sadness and anxiety and worry about a future that I cannot control, or I can choose peace, or I can choose hope. And it was less for, oh, hope and all the prettiness and all like the sweet, like yummy stuff, but it also came to my body. It came specifically with what's going on in the current space of the coronavirus. It was like my body, like I get to add peace because that adds immunity to my body, because otherwise I'm creating stress, I'm rising cortisol levels, and I'm giving my body more work than it has to have and do in order to be healthy physically. So in the physical realm, that's another reason why like I chose well-being, like, well, I chose hope and positivity. So I'm like, if God forbid, like I'm experiencing something and those around me experience something, like I'd rather be a catalyst of, hey, it's okay. Because if I'm the catalyst of like freak out, I'm like, I get to contribute to people's immunity and like in the physical realms as well as the spiritual realms. And it took first getting my body in a state of quiet through like guided meditations and things like that.
Awesome. Anyone else want to add?
Well, what came up for me when Katie was speaking is, choosing all of this is our, like the deeper why is we get to learn to surrender control. Like, I think all of the resistance to the pain and to the suffering and to the cognitive dissonance of what we should do and shouldn't do in these difficult times is a reaction to us trying to control what's going to happen, where will I get my next paycheck, when will this change, and I feel like what I'm hearing a lot is by choosing to access the frequency of joy and positivity, you're really choosing to surrender and allow yourself to enjoy the process even if it's not fun, right? You really give yourself the chance to surrender and relax.
And I think that like that's where sometimes it gets confused, right? Like that choosing positivity or choosing hope, right? Or even choosing joy is going to be good or, like fun or whatever. Like sometimes it's just not, and that's okay. Like sometimes you have to lean into the suck of it, but like, all right, like I can still choose to have a positive experience in something that is difficult. I can still choose to, and that might make it slightly less difficult, right? That you can choose the way that you are react. The choice is how you react, not necessarily what is happening around you, but the choice is how you react to it. And I think that those choices is where people feel out of control. And then if you can like just surrender, that can give you like that sense of peace, gives you a sense of control, even though it's not really control. Not control in the bad way, I guess.
And it took for me, hearing Jamie, you and Elena speak, it was like, but it's like a part of me on this like positivity and hope. Like there was a moment where it's like, Katie, be happy, Katie, be happy, Katie, be happy. It was like, Katie, you're not being happy, goddamn it. And it was like, for me, it took that surrender. It took acceptance. Really. It took this acceptance, like before all that, like, okay, I get to like choose hope and positivity. It like I had to look at like, Katie, like you're being mad at yourself for also not being happy. And so I really had to choose acceptance. And the moment that I accepted, like I'm in it, and it's like I leaned into it, like it's like I didn't want to lean into it, into the sadness, into like the griminess of it all. And then I was beating myself over of like, I'm trying to control this thing. But the moment I accepted is like that led to surrender. The moment that I'm like, you know what, I'm not okay. And it might take me a day or two of not being okay. And that's okay, because my intention, like I have faith and I have trust that no matter how long this might take, and this griminess and this leaning in, the other side of this, like I have hope for it and I see it, and that my intention is there. And so it took acceptance and then surrender, and then kind of like it was freedom and peace after that.
It's beautiful. All of you ladies have brought up such key things. Like, one, what the heck does surrender and trust look like? Because there is, you hit the wall a few times before you're like, fine, whatever it's supposed to be, right? And then from there you get to create. And then we are always, always at choice, which I think there's magic in that. We're always at choice in how we choose to perceive our environment and how we choose to react. So I know Jamie and I talk about this a lot, but state changing, like changing your state when you're in the dumps to shift into positivity, shift into hope. What are your top 3 actual actions or tangible things that can shift someone into hope and possibility?
So I love mantras because I love rewriting the brain. And so I typically work with the client and really get clear on like, well, what is the problem? What's bringing you the opposite of joy? And then from there, identifying like a word that can give them a holy shift. So I call it like a little holy shift, right? So what's going to be the one word or the one phrase that's going to shift you back into who you want to be, where you want to be, how you want to feel. And so I have my own mantras, and I like to really get clear on, because everyone's going to have a different experience of this. So I don't think there's going to be a blanket mantra for everybody who's going through this, right? We're all going to have like the one thing that's really going to be more difficult for us. But finding a word, or like I love I am statements too, like I am this, like I am resilient, I am safe, I am love, to kind of remind you who your true essence is.
I love all the physical, right? Like I love the, like, if you are sitting in a chair, stand up. If you are, like walking around, like turn on some music. If you are, you've got to change what you are actually physically doing to be able to like be, if you want to be doing something else, you got to change what you're doing. Because if not, you're just going to stay where you're at. Like you're stuck in that space. For me, a lot of times it's physical, like either tapping or meditate. Like sometimes I gotta get quiet and sometimes I gotta get loud, right? Like, and yeah, I have to know which it is. So sometimes it's just going for a walk, right? Like I just gotta change. I can't stare at the 4 walls anymore, right? Like, and I think that to me, like shifting the physical, and in that I am like doing the I am statements and chanting it out and doing what I can. But it's like, if you're gonna like think about like, I'm gonna change my state, you've got to know what those things are before you need them. And I think that that's like always key. Like in that, what looks like a mess over there, but is like my board over there, is like, there's a thing that says drink some water, dance it out, meditate, tapping, take a walk, right? 5 things. And to me, those are the things I let go of first and always need to bring back so that I can like shift the mindset. I have like multiple playlists, but I have like playlists for different mood shifting, right? So it's like, oh, okay, I'm sad and I need to move to like energize. That's a different shift than, I'm anxious and I need to move to calm, right? It's like, if I'm trying to go to calm, playing something that's super energizing it's only going to make me more anxious, right? So it's like understanding where you are and where you want to be.
And I think that like that's perfect. Hearing you say that, Jamie, like that in how I have handled these moments now, which have been very interesting, because it's like both I'm experiencing it and I have the space and time to analyze myself going through it. And yes, it was like there's like, I started this kickboxing thing and I'm like physical, and like add the music, add the reggaeton, add the tiki tiki. And then it was like in the moment where it was like, okay, I did all the tiki tiki, and I acknowledged that's what I needed in that moment. And in the other moment of like, there's an emotional like all this stuff happening, with one of the exercises that I did was an inner child exercise, where it was like, how would I be treating my 2-year-old self or my 3-year-old self who's experiencing what I'm experiencing? Like, am I freaking out? Like, am I angry? What's going on? And then I wrote a letter to myself, and I was like, listen, and it was kind of like the adult to the child. And I said, and I'm like, I'm sorry that I don't have the answers right now. And like, but know that I love you and I'm here to protect you and I'm doing my best. And I'm sorry that like I ate that extra snack and like that we're like, because and now we like, I'm sorry I didn't take care of you by like eating all like 2,000 calories in like an hour. And all of these things that happen during the day of just being in the situation and being like in the emotions, and writing to myself and being like, I apologize. And like I'm working to it and I love you and like I've got you. And that like changed my mindset of like, how do I treat myself as my friend and as like my like little self who's also going through all this, and in being like that higher self and in being that like, hey, like choice kind of connected, I'm like, we're gonna be okay and I've got you. And that shifted my perspective from like just being that little angry child of all the like emotions to being like, okay, I'm safe and I'm taken care of and we're doing our best. And it's like, I trust me and I trust a higher power and I have faith.
Yeah, I really want to acknowledge you for sharing that, because ultimately we're all going through these really deep places and these deep undoings at this moment. And it's personal stuff, but it's also like the idea of work and production and these things that we thought we knew ourselves to be. And it's like when you get into the real depth of it, it's not just like, okay, I'm gonna be happy. It's feel the feels and get into it. And then how do we tap into love for ourselves, right? So how are you ladies connecting and generating self-love during this time? Ilona?
So what comes up for me right now is, for me, one of the things that makes me feel connected in general, whether it's to myself or is being of service. Like I'm a Libra stellium. I'm super like all about being in relation to others. So it's very important for me to remember I'm not alone. I think that part of it is we are in this together, and there's a sense of relief and surrender. So surrender means to give up to be restored. So I give up to be restored, that I'm in this alone. And so I come back to love when I connect with someone who reminds me that I am love, they are love, we are love. Connection is my access to self-love and love overall.
I think for me, like to find the self-love is like the patience with myself. Like I love what Katie's talking about, the like writing to your younger self. Like I like to move fast all the time. I'm not good at slow, but all the time I do. I move really quickly. But I also like, I also got sick, right? I was really sick and I was in isolation, and these to me are like the worst case scenarios, like in your bed in isolation with no people and you can't really breathe. And I was like, oh, okay, I have some shadow work to do. Obviously I need to sit here and do the work and be here, but also like give myself a little bit of grace, right? Not be like, oh my god, how did you catch this? Oh, are you going to infect your family? Oh, like just like let go of all of that and be like, okay, this is what I need to do right now. A little bit of forgiveness, a lot of just being. And I think that the like self-love is like, if you were doing the best that you could, how would you take care of yourself? And that grace, I think, is like the grace that we need to give ourselves as well as others, right? Everyone else is doing the best that they can. How would you treat them differently? If that is true, then how do you treat them differently? And I think that that's the thing I like to repeat often to myself about others as well as to myself.
Yeah, I completely relate on the going fast thing. and like I've been in the doing. Like I've got business, I've got this, I've got that. I've always had a million things going on all at once. And it's like, yeah, it's like this is the worst case scenario. Like I feel like it's like there were moments where I'm like, I'm in a bottle, I can't get out, I'm running, like it's like running against the walls. And for me, it took, and it was crazy because I'm used to doing all the things. It was like I forgot of all the things I did. And what helped me to develop that like space and self-love and compassion was writing down and reminding myself, like either keeping it on a note on my phone or writing in my notebook, like all the things that I was proud of myself that day. And that has been a practice that has quite literally saved my life, because I'm doing a million things. And to me, it's like it's never enough. And so I forget of all the cool things. Like I forget that I have been working out every single day. And to me, it's like it's not enough. Like I need it. So when I write down like, hey, you walked for 30 minutes, you put on a kickboxing video for an hour, you cooked, you woke up, congratulations, like you got out of bed. And for me, when I tell myself those things, it's like I did, and I checked off the things, and I brushed my teeth today, and I did my hair, I put on some earrings today. And so writing those things of that I am proud of myself for in these days, it's like I remember all the things I'm doing right. And I tell myself, and under my own things, it's like I did this and I did that and I did this. And it gives me a sense of accomplishment within four walls, that it's like cool. And that for me works because I'm motivated by that. I'm motivated by having my checklist of my accomplishments, and I did things. And so writing that down and being cognizant and aware of the things that I am doing in present moment helps, instead of kind of moving like when it goes all over the place and I'm just thinking of the future and the not enoughness. Like getting grounded and, hey, I did the things. Thanks,
So
Katie.
my dad calls that the done list. Instead of, he doesn't write to-do lists, or when his to-do list is too long and he doesn't want to look at it, at the end of the day he writes a done list and he checks each one of the things off. And then
Yes.
he's like, I finished my done list. And I'm like, this is the greatest thing I've ever heard.
It is everything. It's really saved, like quite literally saved my emotional stat, like life. Like it's great.
I love this because I think these tangible little treats, they're medicine for the soul. And before we keep going, anybody watching, listening, if you have questions for these ladies, please post it. And I would love to share it. And I think we have something. So Karina Michelle says, my word for the year is freedom. And to me, as devastating and absolutely crazy all this has been, it has also opened my eyes to what I truly need and want my freedom to look like. Absolutely. I think, go ahead if you ladies want to comment to this.
I am big on freedom. Very, very big on freedom. Like if I place one of my top values in my life, it is freedom. And I had like a great leader mention, and like I'm forgetting the name, but they basically said like freedom is not doing whatever you want, because I might want to eat all the snacks and I might want to not write a single newsletter for a month. And that's what I want. But like I got the change in perspective that freedom instead is like the little things. Freedom was instead like, hey, careful on like you want to eat healthy, because there's a long-term freedom to that. Like I don't want to go online on Amazon and Poshmark, by the way, I did this, and like shop my emotions away. And it was like that, because that to me felt like freedom. Like I get to do whatever I want. I want to buy whatever I want. But it was like, wait, Katie, like future freedom, like financial freedom, like budget, like careful. And so when I switched my perspective from freedom in the long term, that really helped me in this state, because it wasn't like, oh, I have freedom, like I can get in my car and just go see friends. It was more like, where is freedom in the long term? And it was like freedom to me started becoming like the little self-discipline steps that led to like a bigger kind of sense of peace.
It's interesting. Go ahead.
I completely agree. And freedom is like one of my top ones as well. Like the idea of being like caged is like my like worst nightmare. And so I'm always like, I gotta like, it's like boundaries and pushing out. But usually when those feelings are there, it's because like I don't, it's what's going on inside of me, right? Like the other thing is that like whatever you choose as your word for the year, you choose it in this way that sounds like ridiculously hopeful and positive, and then the universe is going to bring it to you to test you if this is true to what you really want to be calling in. So if that is the word you have chosen, you are being like tested in all the ways that is, you know, like where are you finding that freedom? How are you finding that freedom? What does that freedom look like? What does that really mean? Because that's what you've called in. And that's the part that's always interesting, right? Is like the what you think is going to be the word, and then what the word shows you throughout the year.
I would love you to share an example of this, Jamie, because we do, like all of us at Las Comadres, like we just, it's one of those things we do. We pick a word for the year individually.
We a lot of us wear our words on bracelets. So Allie's got one too. Yeah, Katie, you have one? No. So last year, no, 2 years ago, my word was acceleration. I wanted to do acceleration in mind, body, and spirit. This sounds very hopeful. It sounds like you're going to elevate yourself and do all the things. And somewhere around June, I was like, why is my life moving so fast? And I was like, and my friend, she was like, look at your wrist. And I was like, but it was, every piece of my life was like at warp speed. And I was like, I couldn't even make decisions. Like everything was coming at me and it felt like assaulting. It was coming at me so quickly. And I realized I was like, okay, I still get to choose how this acceleration is going to go. It doesn't have to, I don't have to let it happen to me. Like I am making these choices. I'm making these choices to keep accelerating faster and faster and faster. And then I get to choose it, right? Like, okay, I can stop just because I chose that as my word. Like I can also like slow down to a pace that is actually doable and not burn myself completely out. And like what it looks like, it's like, okay, well, let's go back to the original intention. I wanted it in mind, body, and spirit. That's very different than everything in my life is moving so fast that I can't even see. So like the words you choose and like how you choose to express it, like what does that feel like and look like?
And something that comes up for me from both of these shares is that freedom allows us the opportunity to see what choices we have. And from there, we also see what possibilities there are outside of the world we currently live in, right? Because that's what's happening right now. People are not choosing hope or positivity because they feel like they don't have choices. They cannot freely elect how they're going to feel, where they're going to go, what their future is going to look like. And so this is all, you know, hope and positivity isn't like spiritual bypassing or like just be happy, love and light. It's really assessing what are my options. I can choose to be miserable, or I can choose to see what makes me feel better. And it doesn't mean to bypass, but I feel like we've created almost like a framework, right? There was acceptance. We have to acknowledge and accept what we're feeling. We have to then surrender to the situation as it is. And from there, we get to surrender and be restored by choosing where we're going to take that and how that's going to make us feel and how we're going to be empowered by that. And then, but there are choices, right? That's where the freedom comes in, because there are options.
Absolutely. And even hope and positivity, there's all these little outputs of expressions of what that could look like. So even outside of the realm of quarantine, how does hope and possibility show up in business for you all? Like, how do you actively choose to shift your mindset, your workspace, the clients that you're calling in, so that you do shift back into that space of hope and possibility?
I think for me, it's always like figuring out how I want to be in the world. Like, what do I want my business to look like? What do I want it to feel like? How do I want to be in it? And then always reevaluating. Because it's like hope and possibility are not like something that it's not like some people are just born with it and some people aren't, right? Like, it's not, that is, this is mindset. This is not like, all right, you either are or you are not. Some people have to work a little harder at it because of whatever reasons, but like, it's all possible for whoever wants it. And it's like always for me, it is realigning with myself, right? Like, I want to help people do really big things. So I'm not going to call in clients that don't, right? Like, that would be ridiculous. I want to like help comadres like elevate their business. Same thing. I'm not going to then call in a bunch of people that are going to tell me all the reasons why they can't. I'm going to call in the people that can, right? And like always going back to like your values, your why, like what takes you back into alignment. And when it's out of alignment, recognizing it. Like, okay, I'm off track. Like, let me pull it back together. And I think that it's like the constant shifting. I mean, for me, I use a lot of like gratitude practice in the morning. I use a lot of journaling. I use a lot of meditation. And I can see when those things start to fade a little, everything else is off track. It just starts to slide. And it's like, okay, like coming back to center. Where do I want to be? Who do I want to serve? How can I make this world better? And like, does that feel good to me? Like, I'm also really not into sacrificing myself for any of it. I'm like, oh, how do I want to be in the world? Okay, this is how I want to be. All right. Am I there? Okay. Am I all right? Like, constantly checking in, and then with that checking in, seeing where it can go.
Yeah, it's been a place for my business. It's been a good spot of like reevaluation and working with current clients, and then also having space and time to see where I'm at has been completely pivotal, because one of the biggest lessons during this time is where I don't receive support. And because I want to be so much in control of things, where do I get to surrender? And the biggest realization that I got from that, and going to Jamie's point, it was like, I've got to be what I'm going to attract. And if I can give, and I can serve, and I'm the helper, and I don't allow myself to receive, then one of the things that I saw, it was like, if I'm going to be the energetic model of what I am attracting, then I'm also putting out there and looking at, wait, I might be attracting some like a similar me. It's kind of like also like they get to receive, and like my clients get to receive, and everyone that I'm with get to know that they matter and that they get to be loved. And so it's been such a space, a really helpful and positive space to reevaluate during these times when it's like, nothing is in control, everything is uncertain, and I get to decide the next steps. And so it's been a space of like, okay, let's analyze this. Like, let's see what's working, let's see what's not working, and owning those pieces, and then shifting myself through like journaling and mindset, and like, let's see like what creates more efficiency in my own way of thinking, because that's what I'm putting out there, and that's who I want to be more authentic. Like, I want to be an authentic me, and the more I dig through all the things, the more the authentic me comes out, and that attracts the business that I want, and that I have, and that I dream of. So it's been a good space. It's been from like a reevaluating space of like what's next, and deciding that, and having my eye on that.
For me, it's been a little bit different because I was undergoing a certification right before Corona hit. And, a lot of my friends were like, oh, this is like the worst time to, maybe start up a new business or do something. And when I was looking up the word hope and positivity, so hope is to trust, but positivity comes from the Latin root that means possibility and leaping in, like just leaping in. So for me, hope and possibility for me in my business has been taking that trusting leap of faith that I still can be of service, do my job, like Katie says, receive, right? I get to still have a business, build a business, receive. I think for some of the business people that I've seen, there's been guilt around starting a new business or, raising prices or like having a new product and asking for money. I've seen a lot of inability to receive funds and abundance. But there's a leap of faith that there are still people who are going to want the service, who when we come out of that, trusting that when we come out of that, your service will have provided for them just as much as they provided for you in your work and the abundance that they've given you. So I think there's a lot of just taking leaps and having trust that it's all going to work out.
Can I add one more thing?
Please.
I think one of the other things is like who you surround yourself with. I think like you've got to know who you're going to call for those calls, right? Like who are you going to say that, like, who are you going to call when you're like, yeah, I'm going to start this business in the middle of a pandemic? And you have to know the people that are going to be like, yeah, you are, you're going to be amazing. And then, or you have the other side that are like, you can't do that. You're like, yeah, I think I can. And then, but like, then you're fighting against it. Whereas if you know the people you're going to call, that are going to be like, that's amazing, then you can, it's so much easier to tap in to that space when the people you surround yourself with are those people. Like Brene Brown talks about like your 1 inch by 1 inch square. Like she talks about like you have a 1 inch by 1 inch square and the names on that are the only people that you consider their opinion on that topic, right? So like on your business, who's on your 1 inch by 1 inch square? Who are the people that you're calling that are going to be like, oh yeah, all right, it's time, right? And then as opposed to the people that are going to be like, you shouldn't, no, you should stay with your regular job, do the thing, and it's like, I think that the shift in that and just knowing who those people are, it doesn't mean that the people that aren't on the 1 inch square are your friends or your family or whatever. It just means that they don't get to have an opinion on that topic.
I love that. And it speaks to like breaking out of these constraints that maybe you've been in for a long time, anyone, and like, go ahead, break the box, because on the other side, there's so much light and opportunity. Absolutely. You ladies have brought up so many good points, and I'm curious if anybody has questions, because the things that are the loudest for me are how we are the source or the author of our own experience. And that's something maybe is not common in regular conversations, where it's like who I'm showing up to be is being mirrored back to me in a way by the people in my home, the people I'm calling in, and checking in with yourself like, well, if something's out of alignment, what do I get to shift in myself so that my environment starts to shift, right? And there's so much medicine in that and so much value in that. And I'm curious how you've seen it show up, because I've seen it even in my own practice. Like when I was trading with other healers, my business was the most abundant, right? And so when we're feeding ourselves, it's expressed in our relationships, in our business, and you can't help but shine from that place, right? So even now during quarantine, what are you doing to just kind of check in with yourself and then break the box again and look at what you're authoring and who you're authoring?
So for me, the process of like what I have authored, I've seen it, and this goes to like that trust and that faith that like what is happening to me, as much as I do not like it, is for a purpose. Like there is a reason behind it. And so I think even the process of doing this, I think it just takes a little bit of time, because the process of looking at a situation and being in resistance to the situation and then saying like, okay, I am the author of this. What does it mean to me? Um, one of the things is like my partner and being home, and it was like, and learning, like just adjusting has created just these like collisions. And of course, a part of me is like, him, and like all the external, like it's all the external world's problems. It's like it's all like everybody else's fault. But the moment I'm like, okay, well, what is here for me? Like, why did like a higher power, a higher source, why did the universe give me this? Why did I author this? Why did my higher self and my soul decide that this is a lesson I'm going to learn now? And going from that space and doing that over and over and over again has allowed me that it's kind of like that's the only thing I can control. The only thing I can control is why is this here? Like, why did my soul author this? And for me, ultimately, it was realizing like where I get to surrender, like where I get to have a better relationship with my partner, where I get to look at myself and what I'm responsible for and bringing into the space and then shifting and overall creating a better environment and a positive environment for both of us. And ultimately, like that's our world, that's our communities. Like we all have relationships with each other, and having these moments where I'm like, okay, like what do I contribute and what did I bring? And like, does it help for a better environment for me? Does it not? And then shifting from a place of objectivity has also provided like a really nice and positive space, because once the hard conversations are had with myself and I own the shadows and I own the ugly, then I can do something about it. And I think the first step is like, okay, how did I author this?
Beautiful. Anyone else want to add anything? I guess not. All right. So I'm curious if you had 3 takeaways or little goodies and sweet spots that you could share with everyone around hope and positivity, what would they be?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is self-compassion. You know, start there. You know, I love self-compassion, and the word compassion means to suffer with. So you get to start with you're it's okay to suffer and not from a point of like being stuck there, but being able to, as we've said, accept, like acknowledge and accept that experience to then move on. I think all of us have said we get to sit in the examination of what's coming up for us to then understand where do we want to go, what are the choices we're able to move, and then powerfully choose from there. That's kind of like the process that comes up for me, even just based on this conversation.
I think for me, it's like, and I do love all of that. I think for me, it's like start with gratitude. Start with where you are, and like even if you are finding, 5 small things in front of you that you are grateful for, the water that you are drinking, and you're, like even if the things are teeny tiny. I'm grateful for the shower that I took by myself. I'm grateful for whatever the things are. Starting there to start to shift your mindset, to physically change what you're doing. Like if you are, walking around like that, you are in a bad mood and you are pissed off at everybody and all the things, like what can you do differently to change that? And that might mean that you are like, you have to go and stand out in the sun and scream at the grass for a minute, and that's totally fine. It might mean that you need to eat with your other hand so that you slow yourself down. It might be like, whatever that is, you might need to color in a coloring book. That's fine. Like, and whatever it is that can shift your thinking, and change the way that you act, I think is super important. And then give yourself some grace. If you are only doing the best you can right at this moment, then what does that look like? Like, what can you do to help yourself? And where do you want to be? Like, if you're gonna see yourself, you're gonna be like, okay, I'm doing the best that I can. I would like to be here. Then figure out how to get yourself there.
During this time, one of the biggest things that I'll say, and that to add that hope and that positivity, is like awareness to the emotions and what they mean. And I've personally, like growing up, I didn't have a lot of, like at my home, it was like, don't tell people how you feel, like don't cry, just be happy all the time. And so, which all has like its positive things. And for me, I'm taking the time to really address like, what are the emotions that I'm experiencing? And the thing that I'll be sharing with our group is like a sentience guide to sensations. And that's been really like this time, and I've been doing these practices, but especially during this time where I've got the distractions are quite limited, things are quite slow. I have been able to look within and be like, okay, I feel grief like in my heart. It feels there's pressure there. It like the temperature's hot, and I'm able to identify these emotions. And the moment that I can identify, it allows me the choice that we spoke about a little bit earlier. It's like, okay, what do you need? Okay, so you're experiencing this emotion. So what do you need now? It's kind of like to that inner child, like, do you need happy jumpy music? Do you need to go running? Do you need to like sit down and sleep and paint? And that would be my first takeaway. And then the second is the done list. The done list and being like, okay, in these four walls and in the environment that I'm in, I get to create the magic in it, and I get to decide like, what did I get done, and what am I happy about, what am I proud of myself for. And that's shifted everything. And then the third one is that compassion, like all the time. And it's an exercise to do that, because I've been somebody who, I'm doing all the things, nothing's enough. And so when I started my practice of self-compassion, it took a little bit. My body's not used to, and my brain is not wired to give me compassion. And so I think it's also something to address that, hey, like it's a learning process. It's a rewiring process in our brains that constantly compassion, compassion. One of the mantras that I have is like, I am loving to myself as I am in this moment. Like I love myself as I am in this moment. And that might mean a disaster, crying ugly, like grief, anything, but like I love myself exactly as I am in this moment. Be the third one.
Yeah, all of those things are beautiful and powerful, and they all speak to the connection to self and to your heart, because from that space you can create anything. And I want to acknowledge we have a question. And so Melanie was asking, what's your self-care routine right now during the coronavirus quarantine?
So mine is like a self-compassion practice, actually, of self-kindness. Like I have been going faster than I've ever been before, and I've been letting some balls drop, and I've been like really like, oh my gosh, like what's happening here. And so a lot of, like a list of self-kindness, like I am this, like I'm doing the best I can, like we've mentioned before. And another exercise, thinking about all these things that we've said, is like creating that list. I've noticed that some people can't even say nice things about themselves, so maybe having that like small list of like 5 beautiful things that you can say about yourself. And if you can, reach out to 3 friends to remind you 3 great qualities that you have about yourself. So you have your self-kindness affirmations to remind yourself that you're doing the best that you can in this moment. So for me, the self-care is reminding myself of what I am capable of, what I truly am, my true essence, and not the chaos that's going on everywhere else.
I think for me, it's rest. I need more sleep than I have ever needed, and that's totally fine. My alarm is set way later. I usually wake up really, really early, and it's been a lot later, but that's totally fine. Meditation for me is always necessary, because if I am not sitting on the mat, it shows very, very, very quickly. And so, like, and if I don't want to do it, I need even longer, right? So the like, the putting the phone away, and really like in the morning when I wake up, it's like I leave it plugged in and I don't touch it, and I like do the things before I start getting consumed by the other stuff. I have 3 kids who are home trying to homeschool, and I have all these things happening, and like giving myself the like space for myself, the boundaries that I need to be able to function as a nice human, then and knowing that those are the things that make me function as a nice human. So let me do them. And that's, I feel like, the rest and the sitting. So getting quiet is, I think, the most self-care that I am doing for myself right now.
One of the key things that I came to see, and I told myself, and it was like, Katie, this is a new normal. You are adjusting to a new normal, you and the rest of the world. And so change has never been easy for me. And a change like this is crazy pants. Like, it is quite literally bananas. And so feeling not alone, like that acknowledgement of I'm not alone, like I am adjusting to a new normal, and that means that I'm going to make pivots and shifts that might not be working, and that's okay, because guess what, I am in a period of change, and change has not been easy. And from that place, then 100% that list of like, this is what I am proud of today. Yeah, this is a period of change. Yeah, there's things that I'm doing and that are not working, and that I'm shifting and I'm pivoting, and I'm seeing like where it's going, and this is totally, totally new. And fact is, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm not giving up, and I am continuing this fight with myself, and kind of just adjusting to my own life, and what I want that to look like, just like with the external things that come to me. And that's why that list of like, what am I proud of things I am proud of myself for, like I don't skimp out on those. And when I do, it's kind of like Jamie on the mat, like when I do it, it shows very clearly. So I do like my 10, it's like 10 non-negotiable, like every day. And even when I don't, because sometimes I don't, I'm like, that's okay. And then I go back. And I think it's the ability to like down 9 times you get up 10. And that in and of itself is worthy of acknowledgement. So I do that to myself, and I continue, because sometimes I'm not going to want to get up. I'm like that, and that's okay. So first, that acknowledgement that, change is change. And the second one is like, what am I proud of myself for during this time of change? And what am I proud of myself for daily, to remind myself every day that, hey, like I am enough, and it's okay.
Beautiful. All of it. All of it. And we're going to wrap up in a moment, but I want to hear really quick, ladies, are you creating anything these days that you want to share with the public, or little goodies on your newsletter? Is there anything that stands out to you that you want people to know about what you've been up to?
So I've started a Facebook group called 15 Minutes of Love, and several times a week I interview people to describe what love means to them in 15 minutes, more or less, and also tools and practices to help shift into that frequency. So I can drop the link later on.
Absolutely. Please do that.
So one of the worksheets that I have, and I'm going to be sharing with the group, is A Sentience Guide to Sensations. And on my newsletter, that's what I'm putting out, are like these tangible, practical exercises that even I'm discovering as I'm going through this, that have supported me to build that self-compassion, to build that love and acceptance, that have led to like hope and positivity. So 100% on my newsletter, and I will be dropping the worksheet link. And those are the biggest things. And through my newsletter, like that's what I'm providing, just like these tangible, like connect with your body, and let's check in with the emotions, and let's like, we get to define what that means during this time and in that process.
And I don't know, I'm creating this, man. I am creating lunch break over here. So at Las Comadres, we're just trying to help everyone through this in the best ways possible. Really, help people expand their ideas of what's possible right now, and what is, and the things that can help them out, how to reach out for help and positivity. And we are opening for enrollment, so in May. So if you guys are not part of the community and you want to come in, we will be opening very soon.
Awesome. Thank you, Jamie, and thank you, Katie, and thank you, Ilona. This has been really special, and I trust that everyone out there just feels deeply connected to all three of you and this whole experience. And so I want to offer to everyone, remember, lunch break is right now every day during the week at noon, and there is a wealth of information that you can still go back and see the previous week's panel discussions. And we have a link below that has everyone's IG handle, as well as if you're interested in donating to the community or to these women specifically, there all the information is below. So thank you for joining us. And this has been amazing. Thank you, everyone.
Thank